Hey guys, I'm Vishal from Edureka and I welcome you all to this online training session on AWS. Today we are going to discuss various nitty-gritties of AWS and I hope that you all are in the pinkest of your health because we are going to have some fun today. So let's not waste any time and quickly take a look at today's agenda first. Well, as far as this online training session goes, first you would be understanding what AWS is and what are its uses. Then we would discuss its different features or its advantages rather. Next, we would understand how its architecture works and how it is. Then we would understand its different services and the domains which AWS has to offer to you. Finally, I would finish things off with the demo part. Now, as far as the demo goes, I would be talking about what AWS free tier is, how an instance is created, what are its various security groups and all those things. Plus, you'll be having a lot more to explore. So stay tuned and I hope that you all have some fun today. So what exactly is AWS? Well, AWS is Amazon Web Services and it is one of the best cloud service providers in the market. So when I say cloud service provider, we need to understand what cloud is first. So let me throw some light on this topic. First, let me give you a scenario that existed before cloud came into existence. In order to host a website, I had to buy a stack of servers, and that was very costly. Second thing, upscaling and downscaling was a huge problem because I wasn't certain as in how much space I would be needing. And that meant wastage of resources or under or overutilization of resources. Thirdly, maintaining these servers was a huge pain. So these were all the problems that came into existence. Now cloud helped you solve all these problems. How? Well, what organizations did was some of them they went ahead and they bought some space online and they made arrangements for your databases, your services, compute services, and all those things. And businesses could go ahead and rent those services. That meant you could use or rent services which was needed, and you paid only for those services. You could easily upscale and downscale here. So all your issues were taken care of. And when you talk about cloud services, the first thing that should come to your mind is AWS. Why? Because it is the best in the market. Let's try to understand a little more about AWS. Well, it is a complete software suite or a cloud service provider which is highly secure. It provides you with various compute, storage, database, and n number of other services, which we would be discussing in further slides as well. And when you talk about the market, it is the best, and it has various reasons to be the best in the market. One being its flexibility, its scalability, and its pricing. Other reasons being its compute capacity. Now, why is it so important, the compute capacity? Well, if you talk about the compute capacity, you need to understand one thing. If you take all the other cloud service providers in the market and you combine their compute capacity, that is, you leave out AWS and you take all others into consideration, the space would be somewhere equal to say X. And if you compare it with AWS, it is 6X. So AWS has more compute capacity, which is 6 times more than all the other service providers that are there in the market. So that is a huge amount. So these are the reasons that make AWS one of the best in the market. And let's try to find out what are the other reasons about AWS that make it so good. What are the services, features, and its uses basically. So I would be discussing some use cases now. If you're talking about a manufacturing organization, now their main focus is to manufacture goods, but most of the businesses they focus so much on various other services or practices that need to be taken care of that they cannot focus on the manufacturing goal. Now this is where AWS steps in. It takes care of all the IT infrastructure and management. That means businesses are free to focus on manufacturing and they can actually go ahead and expand a lot. Architecture consulting. Now their main concern is prototyping and rendering. AWS takes care of both the issues. It lets you have automated or speed up rendering as far as prototyping is concerned. And that is why architectural business benefit a lot when you talk about using AWS or any cloud provider. But AWS being the best in the market, again, their services are the best. Media company. Now, as far as a media company goes, their main concern is generating content and the place to dump it or to store it. Again, AWS takes care of all these situations or both these situations. Large enterprises. When you talk about large enterprises, their reach is worldwide. So they have to reach their customers and their employees globally or across different places. So AWS gives you that option because it has a global architecture and your reach can be very wide as far as these points are concerned. Now, advantages of AWS. As I've mentioned, I won't say advantages exactly. I would say features as well. Flexibility. Now, as far as AWS is concerned, it is highly flexible. Now, there are various reasons to support it. And one of the major reasons is it's very cost effective. Let us try to understand these 2 points together rather. Now, when you talk about flexibility, the first concern you should have is you are dealing with big organizations. They have a lot of data that needs to be managed, deployed, and taken care of. Now, when you talk about a cloud provider, if it is flexible, all these things are taken care of. The second thing is it is highly cost effective. Now, when I say cost effective, AWS takes care of almost every aspect. If you are a beginner or a learner, they have something called as a free tier. That means you have sufficient resources to use for free, and that too for one long year. So you would have sufficient hands-on without paying anything. Plus, it has something called as pay-as-you-go model. Now, when I say pay-as-you-go model, what it does is it charges you only for the services which you're using and only for the time being you're using them. Again, that lets you scale up nicely, and hence you end up paying very less. Since you are paying very less, and since you have so many options when you're actually buying its services, what that does is that gives you a lot of flexibility. Scalability. Again, the first 2 points are related to this point. Now, how is that? Now, when I say scalability, what happens is, as I've mentioned, it is very affordable. So you're paying on hourly basis. If you're using a particular service for 1 hour, you'll be paying it only for 1 hour. That is how flexible it is. And what that does is that gives you a freedom to scale up and even scale down. Since it is easy to scale up, it is always advisable that you start with less and then scale as per your needs. Plus, there are quite a few services that are there which can be automatically scheduled. Now, what that means is you'd be using them only when there is an uptime, and in downtime, you can miss those get automatically shut down. So you do not have to worry about that as well. So when you talk about scalability, scaling up and down is very easy as far as AWS goes. Security. Again, now security has been a topic of debate when you talk about cloud services, especially. But AWS puts all those questions to rest. It has great security mechanism. Plus, it provides you with various compliance programs that again help you take care of security. And when you talk about real-time security, even that is taken care of. You can take care of all the suspicious activities that are there, and not you. AWS takes care of all those things, and you're let free to focus on your business rather. So these are the advantages which I feel that AWS adds value to. And apart from that, there are quite a few other points, like we have automated scheduling, which I just mentioned. You have various integrated APIs. Now, these APIs, they're available in different programming languages, and that makes it architecturally very strong to switch from one programming language to another. So these are some of the features I feel that make AWS a wonderful, wonderful service provider in the market. So let's move further and try to understand other things as far as AWS is concerned. It's global architecture. When you talk about AWS, as I've mentioned, it is the best service provider in the market. So what makes AWS this popular? One of the reasons is its architecture. Now, when I talk about its architecture, it is very widely spread and it covers almost every area that needs to be covered. So let's try to understand how it works exactly. Well, if you talk about AWS architecture, now the architecture is divided into two major parts, that is regions and availability zones. Now, when you talk about the regions and availability zones, regions are nothing but different locations across the world where they have their various data centers put up. Now, as far as one region goes, it might have more than one data center. And these data centers are known as availability zone. You being a consumer or an individual, you can actually access these services by sitting anywhere in the world. To give you an example, if I'm sitting in some part of the world, say for example, I'm in Japan right now, I can actually have access to the services or data centers that are there in US right now. So that is how it works. You can choose your region and accordingly you can pick your availability zones and use those. So you do not have to worry about anything. To throw some more light on it, you can take a look at this small map, which is the global map, and it shows the different places which has its regions and availability zones. Now, as far as this map goes, I believe it's fairly old and it has been upgraded in recent times because AWS is putting in a lot of efforts to have more data centers or more availability zones as far as their wide reach is concerned. And we can expect some in China as well. So yes, they are actually reaching far and wide. So when you talk about these regions and availability zones, if you take a look at this map, what you can see is you have your region, which is in orange color, and the number that is inside it is the number of availability zones that there has to be. Now, to give you an example, we have Sao Paulo, which says that it has 3 availability zones. So that is how it is. And the ones that are in the green are the ones which are coming soon, or the regions that are in progress, and some of these have actually gone ahead and already started or have been made available to people. So yes, this is how the architecture works, and this is how the AWS architecture looks like. Okay, so let's move further and take a look at the next concept. Domains of AWS. Now, when you talk about its domains, the first domain that we are going to discuss is compute. And when you talk about compute, the first thing that should come to your mind is EC2. Now, when I say EC2, it is Elastic Cloud Compute. And what it does is it lets you have a resizable compute capacity. It's more of a raw server where you can host your websites, and it is a clean slate. Now, what do I mean by this? Say, for example, you go ahead and buy a laptop. It is a clean device where you can have your own OS. You can choose which OS you want and all those things. Accordingly, your EC2 is again a clean slate and you can do so many things with it. Now, next you have Elastic Beanstalk, which lets you deploy your various applications on AWS. And the only thing you need to know about this thing is you do not have to worry about the underlying architecture. Now, it is very similar to your EC2. And the only difference between the two is as far as your Elastic Beanstalk is concerned, you can think of it as something that has predefined libraries, whereas your EC2 is a clean slate. Now, when I say predefined libraries, say for example, you want to use Java. As far as EC2 goes, now this is just an example, don't take it literally. You'll have to say, for example, install everything from the beginning and start fresh. But as far as your Elastic Beanstalk is concerned, it has this predefined libraries and you can just go ahead and use those because there's an underlying architecture which is defined. Let me say it again. I just gave you an example. Don't take these sentences literally. So next we have migration. When you talk about migration, you need to understand one thing. AWS has a global architecture and there would be a requirement for migration. And what AWS does is it lets you have physical migration as well. That means you can physically move your data to the data center which you desire. Now, why do we need to do that? Say, for example, I'm sending an email to somebody. I can do that through internet. But imagine if I have to give somebody a movie. So instead of sending it online, I can actually go ahead and give it to someone if that person is means reachable for me. And that way it would be more better for me. My data remains secure and so many other things. So same is with data migration as well. And when you talk about AWS, it has something called as Snowball, which actually lets you move this data physically. Now it's a storage service and it actually helps you in migration a lot. Security and compliance. Now, when you talk about security, we have various services like I have IAM, we have KMS. Now, when I say IAM, it is nothing but your identification and authentication management tool. We have KMS, which lets you actually go ahead and create your own public and private keys, and that helps you keep your system secure. Now, there are quite a few other services as well, but I would be mentioning one or two services from each domain because as we move further in future sessions, we would be discussing each of these services in detail. And that is when I would be throwing a lot more light on these topics. For now, I would be giving you one or two examples, and because I want you all to understand these to some extent. Getting into details of all these things would be too heavy for you people because there are quite a few domains and quite a few services that we need to cover. And as we move further, definitely we would be covering all those services in detail. Then we have storage. Now, when I talk about storage, again, AWS has quite a few services to offer to you. We have something called as your S3. Now, S3, it works as a bucket object kind of a thing. Your storage place is called as a bucket and your object which you store in are nothing but your files. Now these objects have to be stored in their root files, which act as the buckets basically. And then we have something called as your CloudFront, which is nothing but your content delivery network. We have something called as Glacier. Now when you talk about Glacier, you can think of it as a place where you can store archives because it is highly affordable. Next, we have networking. Now, when you talk about networking, we have services like VPC, Direct Connect, Route 53, which is a DNS. Now, when I say VPC, it is a virtual network which actually lets you move or launch your resources. That is your AWS resources, basically. When you talk about Direct Connect, you can think of it as a leased internet connection which can be used within AWS. Next on this list, we have something called as messaging. Yes, AWS assures secured messaging, and there are quite a few applications to take care of that as well. Now we have something called as Cloud Trial, we have OpsWorks, all these things, they help you in messaging or communicating with other parties basically. Databases. Now storage and databases are similar, but you have to understand one difference. When you talk about your storage, that is where you store your executable files. So that is the difference between the two. And when you talk about databases, we have something called as your Aurora, which is something which is very SQL like, and it lets you perform various SQL options at a very faster rate. And what Amazon claims is it is 5 times faster than what SQL is. So yes, when you talk about Aurora, again, a great service to have. We also have something called as DynamoDB, which is a non-relational DBMS. And when you talk about non-relational DBMS, I won't be discussing that, but this helps you in dealing with various unstructured data sources as well. Next on this list, we have the last domain, that is the management tools. Now, when you talk about management tools, we have something called as CloudWatch, which is a monitoring tool, and it lets you set alarms and all those things. Hopefully today, when we are done with the demo part, you'd be having at least one part of your CloudWatch covered, because we would be creating alarms using CloudWatch today. So stay tuned for that as well. So this was about AWS and its basics, as in the points which we just discussed, that is what it is, its uses, its advantages, its domain, its global architecture. So yes, guys, what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've switched into my AWS account. The first thing you need to understand is what AWS does is it offers you a free tier. Now, while I was talking about these things, I just rushed through it because I knew that I was going to give you a demo on these things. So, and I wanted to discuss this thing in detail. Now, when you talk about AWS, if you are a beginner, this is where you start. Now, what AWS does is it provides you with its free tier, which is accessible to you for 12 months. And there are quite a few services which we just discussed, which are available to you for free. And when I say free, there's certain limitations on it, as in these many hours is what you can use it for, and this is the amount of memory or storage you can use in total, and all those things, and its capacity and everything. Based on that, you have different instances which you can create and all those things. Now, what AWS does is it gives you these services for free, and as long as you stay in the limits that AWS has set, you won't be charged anything. And trust me, when it is for learning purposes, that is more than enough. And let's quickly go ahead and take a look at these services first, and then there are a few other points which I would like to discuss as well. But firstly, the free tier services. Now, say this is what it has to offer to you: 12 months of free and always free products. When you talk about EC2, which is one of its most popular compute services, 750 hours, and that is per month. Next, you have Amazon Quick Site, which gives you 1 GB of spice capacity. Now, I won't get into the details of these things, as in what spice capacity is and all those things. When you have time, I would suggest that you go ahead and explore these things, as in what do these things do. Today, we are going to focus more on the EC2 part. So for now, let's quickly take a look at these one by one first. Amazon RDS, which is again, which gives you 750 hours of your T2 micro instance. Amazon S3, which is a storage, which again gives you 5 GB of standard storage, and AWS Lambda, 1 million free requests per month. So there are some of the videos here actually which would introduce you to these things that would help you get started with how to creating an account and all those things. And this is the other important point which I would like to mention. When you do create an AWS account, the first thing you need to consider is they would be asking you for your credit card details. So how does the login process work? Firstly, you go there, you give in your email ID and your basic details, as in why do you want to use it and all those things. Next, what it would do is just to verify your account, it would ask you for your credit card details. Even the debit card details work. I've actually tried those. So you can go ahead and give your credit card or debit card details. And when you do that, what it does is it subtracts a very small amount from your account. I did this in India and I know that I was charged 2 rupees, which is fairly less. And that was again refunded back to me in 2 to 3 working days. The only reason they cut those 2 rupees was just for the verification purpose that my account is up and running and I am a legitimate user. Now, as long as you stay in the limits, you won't be charged anything. But if you do cross those limits, you'll be charged. Now, you might be worried, as in, what if I do cross the limit? Would I be charged? Yes, you would be. But the fact is, you actually won't go beyond it. And even if you do, you'll be notified saying that you are going about the limit or above the limit. Even when your free subscription ends, you're notified saying that do you want to enter your billing details and do you want to start billing? And if you say yes, only then you'd be charged for the subsequent months. And that is a very stringent process. You don't have to worry about it. That is, you won't be losing out on any money as long as you follow these rules. So if you do not have an account, my suggestion would be you go ahead, you log into AWS and create your free tier account, which is a very easy and 2 to 3 step process. Once you've done that, these are the services that are available to you, and you can go ahead and use all of these services on your own. Next, we have something called as your simple monthly calculator. Now, this is a very useful app to have. What it does is, whatever service which you are going to use, you can enter in the detail and accordingly you'll be given the price as well. Now, this is something for use after your free tier ends, so that you know that if I have to use these services, how much would I be charged? And this thing will tell you in total. Now, if you can take a look at here, you have these services. Say, for example, I want to add an EC2 service. An instance gets added here. I can put in the description. Now it is Linux t1.micro instance, and this is what my monthly cost is. I can go ahead and I can change the number of instances here to suit my need, and accordingly everything would get verified as in, okay, this is the cost and all those things. So if I enter these values, my AWS calculates all the values accordingly for my storage, for my compute, and there are the other details which you can go ahead and fill in here. And once you've done that, you can actually come here and you can check your estimate monthly bill, because once you save those details there, or once you calculate those details, here would be your monthly expense, because you would be dealing with more than one instances. So your different costs are added together and a total is given to you here, and you can actually go ahead and save it and share it with others, because yes, you might be required to exchange these details with some of your colleagues or whatever it is. And to do that, you have an option here as well, which is provided by AWS. There was a query on Stack Overflow once, as in, can I do that? And AWS quickly responded by going ahead and solving this issue and giving them with this save and share button. So yeah, this is your calculator, your monthly AWS calculator, which lets you take care of your usage and gives you the bill accordingly. So if you're worried about as in how much you're going to spend by using AWS or its services, you can always come here and calculate that as well. Now that being said, let's quickly move to the demo part and see what all we can do with the AWS. Now, I have my account here and I've logged in actually. So these are the services that are there at my disposal rather. So I'm just going to go ahead and open one of these. Say, for example, I open my EC2 service. My internet is a little slow today, so yep. As you can see, I have one running instance, I have one key pair, I have 3 security groups. As we move further, we would be dealing with these and we would be implementing or creating new instances and all those things. So firstly, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create a key pair. Now, why do I need to do that? The first thing you need to understand is when you create a key pair, what you're doing is you're actually going ahead and you're creating your SSH key. Now, when I say SSH key, that is something but a secure shell key. Now, this key is very useful when you talk about certain OSs, because that helps you establish your connection. When you talk about Windows, you do not need to do that. So, but still, you would be needing an SSH key. Now, you might wonder why. The reason you'd be needing it is because given on the longer run, even if you're using Windows, you'd be required to put in an admin login, and for that you'd be requiring this key anyways. If you're on using this application on your Linux OS, in that case, it is a must that you generate the key first. One more thing you need to understand is once you generate this key, you need to take care that you do not lose it, because once it's gone forever. So that is one precaution you need to take. So let's first start by creating a key pair here. And as we move further, you'd understand why did I create one. So I say create my second key, because I believe I've created a key in this account prior to this. Second key, I say create, and there you go, I have a key. Now my second key is something which I basically have it here. I'll just cut it from here and I'll paste it in one of my folders basically. So let's say I'm here and I say I need a new folder. I come here, I say AWS demo, and I put my key in here. I would be needing this, that is why I'm doing it. Now you can see that the extension here is .pem. You might get other extensions depending upon the system which you're using and the OSs that it's running or using. So depending on that, this extension might vary. It's preferable that it is .pem. So yep, we have this key now, and let's see what we can do with it. I'm gonna go ahead and select this key, unselect this for now, and I have all the information as far as this key is concerned. Now, as I've already mentioned, that security is very important when you talk about your cloud services. So it is very important that you define a proper security group to take care of all these things. So before we create an instance, let's quickly go ahead and create a security group first. I come here. I've actually gone ahead and created a security group. So I would want to go ahead and create one more. So I would say create. Now when I do that, I need to give a name to it, say this security for today's demo. I say security demo description for reference sake is what I would say. There you go. And we'd be going ahead and adding in rules here. And then where do I want certain rules? Because you can go ahead and define certain rules. How do you want to give access to your system and all those things? So I say, as far as my accesses are concerned, I'd be wanting an SSH rule. See, the port range is given to you because you can communicate with the system through these ports basically. And then I can go ahead and add more. I can say HTTP. There you go. I say I would be needing HTTPS as well. And since I'm using Windows, I would go for RDP. Now these are the different port names that are there. Now, as far as these groups are concerned, so you can see that this has 00000 security because you would be wanting these ports to be available to others as well. Because why? You're dealing with data exchange and all those things. So these are the ports that need to be active. Now you have your SSH and your RDP. Yes, for now they're secured here. I can actually go ahead and change it here for the simplicity sake. If I have it something like this, or maybe like this is how it would look like. And for the sake of being easy to use, I'd be having it like this. But as far as you are concerned, you need to consider better practices for this. You have different sources here. Why? Because you have an option to customize it. You can go ahead and customize those because there are certain services which you would be wanting to use differently, and it is very important that your system is secured because since certain services would be accessing your data, it is important that access is denied to them in certain cases where it's not required. And that is why you need to consider your security practices. Now, as far as this demo goes, this is a basic thing which we are doing, and we can ignore our security policies here. This is just for the demo sake, and I would be creating a simple security group. So this sources, bear with it for now. Now I say create, and there you go. My security group is created. It is security demo here. That is the name. Now let us move further and go ahead and create one of the instances that we can do. So I go to services, I say EC2, and I say launch an instance or create an instance. Now there are quite a few instances here. We have Linux and all those things. I would be going for Microsoft Windows. Let me just go ahead and pick one. We can actually go ahead and pick any. The only thing we need to consider is whether it's eligible for you. Now, when I say eligible, I mean eligible for your free tier basically. So let us go ahead and pick one of these. I would say base 2012 server. Let us see whether it's doable for us. Yep. Now this is selected by default because it's free tier eligible and we're actually going to go ahead and use it. Now, when you're creating an instance, you need to understand one thing. These are the details that are there about the instance, and these are some of the points you need to consider. When you say review and launch, you can just click on it. You would directly be taken to the last step, and all the by default admits are given to you. But now that we are doing it for the first time here, I would want to do it step by step. There's nothing we are doing. We are just selecting the by default thing, but I just wanted to see what all it has to offer to you. Say, for example, when you pick a general purpose T2 instance, number of CPUs, 1, your memory, 1 GB basically. And these are the other details as in network performances, low to moderate and all those things. So I say next. These are the details which I can enter in as in the number of instances, purchasing options, network, subnet, and all these things. Is there an IAM rule and all those things? So yeah, for now, I'm not going to make any changes again here, and I'm just going to say next. As you can see the size, I have 30 GBs of total available with me. And these are the details about it, IOPS and all those things. So you can just go ahead and say next. Now you have an option here whether you want to go ahead and add a tag and all those things, and you can do that. Or you can just go ahead and say next. You have a wizard here. And there you go. I have my 7th step where I can go ahead and launch my instance. You can see I have a notification here saying that improve its security. As I've mentioned that we are doing it for the demo sake, and I've chosen few basic ones. So I do not have to worry about anything. My ports are open and those are accessible. So the thing is my AWS is warning me as in you should not have it that way. So when you do go ahead and implement it on larger scales, you need to take care that your security groups are well defined and properly defined. For now, let's go ahead and say launch. Now it would ask you to pick a key pair. As I've mentioned that key pair is important whether you're using it on Windows or not, but you need to go ahead and define a key pair. So I would go ahead and select an existing one because we created one. Proceed with a key pair. Okay. I say I acknowledge and I say launch. And it says that your instance is now launching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and view the launch log, and it gives me details as in what are inbound rules and all those things I mentioned here. How do I connect to my instances and all those things. There's an information here. I can just go ahead and say view instances. And there you go. I have both of my instances here and the details are given to me as in what are the details. Now I've gone ahead and I'm stuck with this availability zone as far as I'm concerned, which is Mumbai for my case. You can go ahead and pick an availability zone for your sake, but make sure you stay consistent with it because that would be more convenient for you. That is for your different instances. Status checks as far as this goes. Everything is okay here. This was the instance which I launched yesterday. This is the one which I've launched today, which is still initializing. So there you go. You have one here. Yeah, so this was about going ahead and creating an instance as far as AWS is concerned. Now, what we can do is we can go ahead and try and do other things as far as your AWS is concerned. Now, the other points which we need to discuss are, can we connect this instance to a server? And the answer to this question is yes, we can do that. Meanwhile, what I want is I want my instance to refresh first and everything needs to be in place before we do that. Yeah, so there you go. Now as you can see the status checks, as far as the checks are concerned, it is complete and we can go ahead and we can connect to a server now. So I was talking about the different servers that you can go ahead and connect to. Now, if you're using a Linux machine, you need to understand one thing, that you have to go ahead into your terminal and then you have to connect to your server. But when you talk about Windows, the process is a little different. Let us see how we can do that using Windows. Say for example, I select this instance here, the second one, I say connect. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to go ahead and download a remote desktop file for that. And how do I do that? I do this. I say connect. It would be asking me for my admin password here. It would give me an error because I need the password here, and I guess I missed out on the password. Just bear with me. Let me just generate the password and I'll get back to you on this. Okay, so how do I do that? What I'm going to do is I'm going to get into my previous instance, this one, and I'm just going to connect or try to connect it because I have one here already. So as you can see, I have this option here which says get me a password. As far as my administrator or username is concerned, it is administrator. And when I say get password, I'll be clicking here and it would be asking me to choose a file. Say for example, I go ahead and I choose one of the files. Now I had downloaded the password last time, or the key rather. Now that is why you need the key. When you store it at some place, you'd be asked for this key and you have to enter it here. And when you say decrypt password, there you go. You'll be getting your password here, which is this. Now I would be copying this password for my reference sake. Control C. Just to give you a demo again, I'll download it. I'll close it. And I would say connect. It would ask for the admin password and I say take this. Do you want to connect despite these certification errors? Yes. And there you go. I've connected to the server here and this is the file which I created the last time. There you have it. So this is how you go ahead and actually create your instance and connect to the server. You can go ahead and create another files here. You can say new, you can have your options. It's just like your nice operating system where you can do so many things. Yes, it's more of a clean slate and it's fully available to you to go ahead and edit it the way you want to. So this is what we did right now. We've actually gone ahead and we've created an SSH key. The reason we did was because we wanted to log in here. Second thing, we went ahead and we created a security group. Yes, it wasn't great, but you can actually set security rules as per your needs. Then you can go ahead and launch your instance and then you can connect to a server you want to. Now this is what I have here. I can actually go ahead and do other things as well. What are the other things that I can do? Well, I can go ahead and I can set alarm for my systems. And how do I do that? Now I have something called as my CloudWatch here under my management tools. Now when I come here, I can go ahead and set alarms as well. What kind of alarms? Say for example, I want to monitor my system and I want to make sure that the usage as far as my system is concerned, it does not go above maybe say 70%. And if it does go above 70% and that happens for 5 continuous minutes, I want my system to throw in an alarm for me. So can I do that? Yes, I can actually go ahead and do that. I can create an alarm and I can do that accordingly. I click here on alarm. I say my EC2 metrics basically, or I just type EC2 here. All the services are here. And since we are creating an alarm for utilization, let's select that. You get all the details here, as in how much is the usage and all those things. You can come here and define the alarm name, say CPU usage greater than 70%, say, and you say throw an alarm when usage exceeds 70%. There you go, 70. And I move down and I say notify me. How do I do that? Send notification to new list. Suppose I enter in some email ID. Now take this for example. Suppose I go ahead and use this account here and I say create an alarm. Okay, there has to be a name as well. Say VPT for example. And congratulations, your alarm has been created. It says insufficient data because there's pending information here. You need to understand one thing. When you do create an alarm, the email ID you enter in, AWS would go ahead and it would give in a message to the email ID or in the email ID saying that this is something that is trying to happen here. Do you want to be notified when the usage goes this far? And if the user says yes, or he or she confirms that that can be done, in that case, AWS would configure this status saying that yes, it is no longer pending, and the status would be displayed here and this would turn to green. So this is how you actually go ahead and create your own alarm as far as AWS is concerned. So I hope you've understood this part. Now, this pretty much brings us to the end of the today's demo, as in we've discussed all the points that we were supposed to, and I hope you all had something new to learn. So that's it then. I hope to see you all again. Thank you. Bye-bye.